Before we dive into this bone-chilling tale that will keep you up at night, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss the spine-tingling stories we have lined up for you. And now, let's get into it. A story so terrifying, it will haunt you long after the lights go out. It was a cold October evening when Lisa first moved into the old Victorian house on the outskirts of a small, sleepy town. The place was everything she'd ever dreamed of. Large bay windows, intricate wooden carvings, and a garden overgrown with wildflowers. It was the perfect place to start over after her divorce. A quiet retreat where she could work on her art and rebuild her life. But the house had a history, one the real estate agent had conveniently glossed over. The first few nights were uneventful, though Lisa couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. She chalked it up to her nerves and the overwhelming silence of her new surroundings. The creaks and groans of the old house seemed natural enough. After all, it had stood there for over a century. But then the oddities began. It started small. One morning, she found all the kitchen cabinets wide open, though she was certain she had closed them the night before. Thinking she might have forgotten, she didn't give it much thought. But when she found her paintbrushes arranged in a perfect circle on her studio floor, she began to feel uneasy. She lived alone, and no one else had a key to the house. Things escalated when Lisa began hearing whispers. At first, she dismissed them as the wind or her imagination. But as the nights went on, the whispers grew louder, more distinct. They seemed to come from the walls themselves, low murmurs that she couldn't quite make out. "You're just tired," she told herself, pouring another glass of wine to calm her nerves. One night, as she lay in bed, she was jolted awake by the sound of footsteps echoing in the hallway. Her heart pounded as she strained to listen. The footsteps were slow and deliberate, moving closer to her bedroom door. Summoning every ounce of courage, she grabbed her phone and turned on the flashlight. She swung the door open, but the hallway was empty. The wooden floorboards were still groaning as if someone had just walked across them. Lisa didn't sleep at all that night. The next day, she decided to do some research on the house. A trip to the local library revealed its dark past. The house had belonged to the Whitaker family in the early 1900s. They were a reclusive bunch, rarely seen in town. According to old newspaper clippings, all 5 members of the family had died under mysterious circumstances. The father had been found hanging in the attic, the mother had drowned in the bathtub, and the 3 children had suffocated in their sleep. The deaths were ruled as tragic accidents, but locals whispered about something more sinister, a curse, or perhaps a vengeful spirit. Lisa's unease turned to outright fear when she discovered a small door hidden behind an old bookcase in her study. It led to a narrow staircase spiraling down into a dark, damp cellar. The air grew colder with each step she took, and the smell of decay was overwhelming. At the bottom, she found a wooden box covered in cobwebs. Inside were photographs of the Whitaker family, their faces solemn and their eyes oddly lifeless. There was also a journal belonging to the youngest child, Emily. The journal entries were chilling. Emily had written about seeing shadowy figures in the house and hearing voices telling her to do terrible things. The final entry read, "They're here. They're coming for us. I can't stop them." That night, Lisa's sleep was shattered by a deafening bang. She rushed downstairs to find all the picture frames on the walls had fallen to the floor. The whispers were louder now, almost deafening, and the air felt heavy, oppressive. She screamed when she saw the reflection in the broken glass of a photograph. A figure standing behind her, its face obscured but its eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. Lisa turned around, but no one was there. Trembling, she backed away and stumbled into the living room. The temperature had dropped so drastically that her breath fogged in the air. And then she saw it, a shadowy figure standing at the far end of the room. It was tall and thin, its limbs unnaturally long, and its head tilted at an impossible angle. It didn't move, but Lisa felt its gaze pierce through her. Paralyzed with fear, she whispered, "What do you want?" The figure slowly raised one hand and pointed toward the cellar door. Lisa's chest tightened as she struggled to breathe. Summoning every ounce of courage, she bolted for the front door, only to find it wouldn't budge. The shadowy figure was now inches away from her, its cold, unnatural presence suffocating. And then everything went black. Lisa woke up on the living room floor as sunlight streamed through the windows. At first, she thought it had all been a nightmare. But the cellar door was open, and the wooden box she had found was now sitting on the coffee table. The photographs were scattered around it, and Emily's journal lay open to the last page. Scrawled across it in jagged handwriting that wasn't there before were the words, "Get out." Lisa didn't need any more convincing. She packed her belongings and left the house that very day. As she drove away, she glanced in the rearview mirror and saw the shadowy figure standing in the upstairs window, watching her leave. She never went back. Months later, she learned that the house had been demolished. The lot where it once stood remained empty, overgrown with weeds and wildflowers. Locals said they sometimes saw faint lights flickering in the darkness and heard whispers carried on the wind. But no one dared to go near it. Even now, Lisa can't shake the feeling that something followed her from that house. Strange occurrences still plague her. Objects moving on their own, cold spots in her new apartment, and the faint sound of whispers just as she's drifting off to sleep. Whatever was in that house, it wasn't bound by walls or foundations. It had attached itself to her, a lingering presence that refuses to let go. So, the next time you're drawn to an old, mysterious house with a dark history, think twice before stepping inside. Some places aren't meant to be disturbed, and some things, once awakened, can never truly be put to rest. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more tales that will send shivers down your spine. And remember, the scariest stories are the ones that are true.